Based on neuroanatomy, we proposed fetal pain beginning as early as 12 weeks. This is the earliest gestational age in which fetal pain was ever acknowledged as a possibility by any prominent researcher. The case for fetal pain does affect the case for abortion because a lot of people don't want to kill something that is sensate, that is conscious. If you prick us, do we not bleed? This is, if we feel pain, are we not human?
From flying helicopters to serving on the battlefield, from teaching in classrooms to writing on bioethics, today's guest has worn many hats of service. Major John Bachman is set to retire from the U.S. Army in a few months after nearly 2 decades in uniform. For the past 8 years, he's served as an Army physician assistant with deployments in Afghanistan, Poland, Kuwait, and Jordan. Before that, he was a Black Hawk pilot and mechanic, including a deployment in Pakistan. Outside the military, he's been a university resident director, a grade school teacher, a writer, and even a radio DJ. He is also the co-author of Reconsidering Fetal Pain, one of the most cited articles in the Journal of Medical Ethics, a work that has reshaped the debate on preborn life and even been cited before the Supreme Court. A soldier, a father, and an advocate for life, Major John Bachman brings a remarkable story to the table. This is Living Pro-Life. Well, welcome, John. I'm glad you're on the program. Thanks for being with us today.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
Well, John, I just want to get right into it. You wrote the number 3 most cited article in a Journal of Ethics. So tell us a little bit about that article, what it's called, and why it's important.
The article is titled Reconsidering Fetal Pain, published in 2020. And you're right, it is the number 3 article ever published by the Journal of Medical Ethics, British Medical Journal's Journal of Medical Ethics. And I'm a co-author, so I'm not the author. I don't think my name would be recognizable to most people, but the name of the lead author certainly is, Stuart Derbyshire. His name kept coming up over and over again in my fetal pain research when I was a PA student. And one compelling article that I read in the New York Times had him saying, hey, you know, this theory on fetal pain not being present during any time in gestation is really compelling, but I just don't think it works. And so it kept bothering me. So as I was ready to finalize my thesis in PA school, I just reached out to Stuart and I said, hey, what do you mean by that? And that began a conversation that continued for several years and led to me confronting him on some what I saw as deficiencies in some of his other definitive writing. And then he asked me to write this paper with him. So that's in a nutshell. There's a lot more to it, but quite an interesting journey it's been, I would say.
Well, I think we talked beforehand. I'm not sure that he's the most pro-life individual in the world, is he?
Certainly not. He is well known for being pro-choice. In fact, pretty much, I think he hasn't changed. Pretty much any time in gestation, he's very much about women's bodily autonomy, bodily rights, and views the fetus as, I don't know if appendage is quite the right term, but something like an appendage that she is free to dispose of at her will. Now, he doesn't think that the fetus is deserving of zero consideration. He thinks that fetal pain is a reasonable consideration, but he doesn't think it should be the final one. He's consulted with Planned Parenthood and Marie Stopes, I think, in the UK. So yeah, very much pro-choice.
I know you're deployed out in the Middle East and all the work that you're doing for the Army. And thank you for your service. We appreciate your service. Absolutely. But so how did this all come to be that you would then get together with this individual on this article?
I won't take you back to the very, very beginning. I'll just take you back to PA school. I was a new father in PA school, PA, physician assistant. And my pro-life awakening had happened some years earlier with the conception and birth of my 2 young daughters. And when I became a dad, that's what really set me on the pro-life track. I really became awakened to that. That's where my awakening happened. Well, in PA school was when David Daleiden, I didn't know about him before 2015, summer 2015. Fetal pain was in the news around the same time. because of a lot of legislation claiming fetal pain at 20 weeks or so. Well, David Daleiden was a researcher from my alma mater, actually, in California, but he teamed up with some other folks posing as, I don't know what the proper term would be, but purchasing fetal parts for research.
Yeah.
And he went to a lot of Planned Parenthood affiliates across the nation, Houston, California, different places in California, maybe some other ones. And basically, they agreed to sell him, from my perspective and his, sell him body parts, which is illegal. And so he exposed these interactions, some of which were shockingly callous. One of the Planned Parenthood executives said, "I want a Lamborghini from the sale of cheese."
Terrible.
Yeah. So that stuck in my brain a lot. And as a new dad, I just realized that this was a world that I didn't want any part of. I didn't want to live in a world where this kind of interaction was a-okay. And it really tore me up. Like I was enamored with my daughters. The best thing that ever happened to me. And to see these folks casually piling body parts up on trays and talking about them in this callous way, I just couldn't take it. So that's the background. That's the Planned Parenthood David Daleiden videos, and that radicalized me from that moment on. And so I had to study fetal pain.
Yeah, so go a little deeper into the article. We now kind of know a little bit of the story of getting into it, but what are some of the findings on fetal pain?
We proposed. So findings might be a little strong, but based on neuroanatomy, we proposed fetal pain beginning as early as 12 weeks. And that was a radical departure from pretty much anything that had been published, apart from maybe a few very pro-life articles. This is the earliest gestational age in which fetal pain was ever acknowledged as a possibility by any prominent researcher, especially a prominent pro-choice researcher. So 12 weeks really was a shock to a lot of people.
Just for a lot of the listeners, they don't know kind of the background of how is this research done? How would one come to these kind of conclusions, or at least hypothesis that fetal pain is actually earlier than 20 weeks? What would make it more definitive to be at 12 weeks?
I mentioned that we propose it based on neuroanatomy. One of the primary themes in fetal pain research is what I call the consciousness barrier at 24 weeks. So consciousness is a prerequisite for pain consciousness. Any kind of pain consciousness, in theory, according to these other papers, could not occur before 24, 28, or even 29 to 30 weeks, based on the immaturity of the cerebral cortex, the outer part of the brain. The cortex means bark. So the outer part of the brain with some internal structures sometimes included in that. So that at least 24 weeks was the consciousness barrier. And what Stuart and I proposed, based on findings from other papers, this was more of a meta article. We didn't do original research. We just kind of interpreted others' research. But one of the reasons we settled on 12 weeks was because this was some of the earliest nerve radiations to the thalamus and the midbrain, which we consider to be the earliest possible onset of pain consciousness. And not just the thalamus, but what something called the subplate, which is a kind of an early version of the cerebral cortex. And so that was what we arrived at. And the reason we said that was because there was some compelling research that the cortex really may not be required for some version of pain sensation, pain awareness, pain consciousness. And so we said, well, if the cortex is not required, then what's left? What would be the earliest arriving structure that could impart that pain consciousness? And we thought maybe the subplate, and I think maybe the thalamus, and maybe some other structures.
Tell us it was cited in some Supreme Court documents and some briefs that were sent to the Supreme Court. And so tell us, why are they citing this research that you did in those documents? Why does it matter in Mississippi or anywhere around the country?
Okay, yeah. Mississippi, the Dobbs case cited our fetal pain research because their law was based on awareness, some kind of conscious awareness of pain or any kind of consciousness at all. I need to refresh my memory on that. But 15 weeks was their cutoff, and they said, and I think they were considering our paper, honestly, in making that law, because our paper said 12 weeks was the earliest possible onset of fetal pain awareness. And so 15 probably seemed like a pretty reasonable extension of that. So that's how it came up in the Dobbs case. The Supreme Court case only mentioned it as a footnote, fetal pain at all, not even our research. But the case for fetal pain does affect the case for abortion, because a lot of people don't want to kill something that is sensate, that is conscious. A lot of the success abortion has had has come from, I would say, dehumanizing the fetus. And it's hard to kill something that we see as one of us. There seems to be something in the human makeup, the human psychology, that stops us, or at least hinders us from just casually dismissing even the smallest member of the human family. It's like Josiah Wedgwood's medallion, anti-slavery medallion back in the 1700s. Am I not a man and a brother? Or it's like Shylock's, if you prick us, do we not bleed? This is, if we feel pain, are we not human?
Yeah.
Or are we not worthy of consideration?
Well, as a medical professional yourself, tell us about where the medical profession should be standing and holding the line through the Hippocratic Oath and other ethics, and why some maybe just cross over that line and just go, run. And, we now have physician-assisted suicide and a variety of other things that are, I don't believe, are in alignment with the Hippocratic Oath. So any thoughts on that?
Yeah, very strong thoughts. This is part of the reason why I got in with both feet into the anti-abortion camp, and why I wanted to study fetal pain is because as a new medical professional those years ago, I could not give myself wholly to a profession that viewed this as normal. It's obviously against the Hippocratic Oath, regardless of how people want to spin that. It's just so obvious. I mean, I will not give a woman a pessary for abortion. I will not kill my patients, essentially, is what they say. I will not give poison. I will not. I mean, it's just so obvious. It's in black and white. And why do they have to say that? Why did Hippocrates have to make that as an oath? It's because it was happening 2,500 years ago. And it happened 2,500 years ago because there's something, I believe, in the human makeup, the human psychological makeup, that wants to do what we want to do. And the price of freedom and the price of justice is eternal vigilance. And so we have to guard our profession. We have to guard our humanity. The Oath of Geneva, it's a more modern version of the Hippocratic Oath, and it explicitly says, I'll protect life from the time of conception. And what the Oath of Geneva was a direct response to the Nazi atrocities, the perversion of medicine and law, by the way. They perverted pretty much everything during the time of World War II. The Nazis, not just the Nazis, by the way, the Japanese, the Soviets, and you could argue that the United States, but I think the United States at least was on the good side. But definitely the Nazis perverted medicine to such that killing was healing. And I don't know if that sounds familiar to you these days, where abortion is healthcare, but this is very much in the same mindset of, I dare say, Nazis. I know that may seem like a little bit overstatement, but I think it's exactly on target.
So tell us a little bit about, we as the pro-life movement, if we're taking a step forward in the next 10, 20, 30 years, I think we had talked earlier about reaching across the aisle, whether it's a political aisle or just over to those people who are in favor of abortion, and how could we maybe bridge that gap and bring everybody into the fold to realize that, taking innocent life is probably not the best thing for us?
Good question. This is really on my mind a lot, because doesn't matter what our convictions are if we can't get other people on board with them. A lone soldier is a dead soldier. And so we need everybody else on board here. I don't care where they come from. A left side, right side, pro-choicers. We might be able to find it. We found some ground. Stewart is a pro-choicer, and we wrote this article together. I think it starts, Brian, with an acknowledgement of the ways in which we ourselves are blind to our own mistakes and the ways in which we try to explain away our own viewpoints and the ways we aren't being honest. Because ultimately, I really do think that if we're all honest, I think most of us would not support abortion. And we can get very frustrated, I think, with the other side because it's so obvious to us. Okay, well, we are also missing things too. And so I think acknowledging our own foibles and weaknesses gives us a position of humility to approach the other side. And it's very dangerous to approach them otherwise because they're going to shut us out. I don't know why. I wouldn't listen to anybody who came at me loaded for bear. I just go on to the next. So I think we really have to take stock, take a personal inventory, and stay accountable and pay attention to how we're coming across and study how to reach others who disagree with us.
Well, so I know you've done a lot as a guest author for Secular Pro-Life, which is not a religious organization, but is a pro-life organization. But we look, even our own organization, we're based on Christian values. When we look at abortion, we look at it as more than just simply a religious position, but a human position. So tell us a little bit about why it may not just be a religious issue, but we need to be able to come together with those who may not be religious.
I like Secular Pro-Life's position because their starting point for this discussion is farther down the line than yours and mine as Christians. But their starting point is acknowledging that humans have value. Where that value comes from, they leave open to discussion. But I think most people understand that human rights applies to humans. Where that comes from is an open topic, and we don't even have to get into it. Grounding human rights in our common humanity is a powerful way of moving forward with this discussion on pro-life versus pro-choice, abortion versus letting live, So that right there is a starting point.
I'm excited that you will soon be retiring from the Army and hopefully being able to spend a little bit more time in the pro-life movement. But again, thank you for your service there. Any last advice or a piece of encouragement for our listeners?
Yeah, I would say for those who want to get involved, I just got involved because I did what I wanted to do. I didn't worry about my credentials, which I had none. I didn't worry about the huge obstacle in front of me. I just did what I wanted to do. And it turned out that all the things I had wanted to do over the years had made me qualified, capable of engaging in this way with Stuart, who was an expert. It just so happened that I did what I wanted to do and it worked out. So I would just encourage people to do what you want to do, discuss online, do your own research, volunteer at a pregnancy center, contribute to pro-life causes. Secular Pro-Life is a good one. Go to events in your city. I'm trying to go to March for Life in January, we hope, if the military allows. And just start there. Just do what you want to do. If you're interested, don't let some artificial obstacle stand in front of you and prevent you from doing it, because who knows how useful you could be.
Well, John, with that, I appreciate you being on the program. Thanks for your work, both in the military and also in fighting for the preborn. Thank you.
My pleasure, Brian.